And he is going to be talking to Alara Basul, who is the online editor of UKTN. Please come up onto the stage. Thank you, Hayden and Alara. Round of applause, everybody. All right, Hayden.
All right. Can everyone hear me at the back? Yeah? Okay, well, welcome to this session with In an Elevator With. I want you all to kind of use your imagination and picture Hayden and I in an elevator. And I'm just going to be asking Hayden some questions about Bulb, and hope you enjoy the next 15 minutes. So, Hayden, can we start by telling a few people about Bulb, for those of you who don't know?
Sure. Bulb is a renewable energy supplier. We're based in the UK. We actually used to be based literally just down the road on Hanbury Street. Today we supply 1.3 million homes with affordable renewable energy. Yep. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah. And you started in 2015.
Yep.
So 4 years in the energy kind of industry. What was it like in the early days?
I mean, we've had a lot of different, I guess, like phases of what it's been like to be in the company. So obviously, when it was just me and my co-founder Amit Gudkar, it was great fun. Still is great fun. And what have we grown to now? There's 450 people in the company now. It's been quite rapid growth in the team since then.
And so you started 4 years ago. You're at over 1.3 million customers. You mentioned earlier when we were just chatting that there's 60 million in venture capital funding.
Yeah,
so
we raised last year. Yep.
Last year. How have you kind of experienced this rapid growth?
Well, Amit and I didn't think that Bulb was going to turn into this large company. When we very first started, we thought we were going to create a kind of small and really efficient and we wanted to create an example of what an energy company could be like to the big energy companies, and we hoped that they would sort of adopt some of the technology that we had developed and adopt some of the ways in which we were treating customers. But what we realized about 18 months in after starting was that we were signing up something like 20,000 customers a week, which in our original business plan we'd said that we would add 20,000 customers in a year.
Wow.
And so then the plans changed, and we just thought, right, let's try and get as many people as we can to save money on their bills and save their carbon emissions by growing the number of members that we have.
And when you were experiencing the kind of rapid growth you mentioned from 20,000, how did that affect your company? Did you have to hire a lot more staff? Did you have to change your business model? How did that go?
Yeah, so our business model has always been quite consistent. So we have a single tariff. So whereas with other energy companies, they charge different rates to their new customers, to their old customers, and we've always just not done that. We've kept the same single rate. We're able to do that because we automate so many of the operations that a normal energy company has. So it means we're able to supply energy to a home for about 20% lower cost, which is good because people like to save on their energy bills. But the thing that happened when we started to really accelerate growth was that there was just a lot more demand on things like customer service, and we were receiving a lot of sort of contact from potential partners who wanted to work with us. And so, we had to increase the size of the operations team to sort of cope with that inflow. And one of the things that's really tricky when you're in that phase of hypergrowth is like forecasting how, what the demand's going to be like in 6 months' time or a year's time, because it's just quite hard to predict that geometric growth. But I think with a lot of hard work and a lot of really smart analysis, we've been able to predict that much more accurately now.
Yeah. And how would you say Bulb kind of stands out from kind of others in the energy industry?
God, I mean, yeah, good question. I guess I should have a good elevator pitch for this.
We are in an elevator, technically.
So I think there's two main differences. The first one is in how we treat our customers and how the relationship that we have with we call them our members. And so we focus on like clear, transparent pricing that I mentioned. We have the top-rated customer service, and we communicate really actively with our members about their energy usage. So unlike your typical energy company, we actually want our members to reduce their energy usage because it means that they lower their carbon emissions. The second thing that I think is very different about Bulb versus other traditional energy companies is that over a third of our company are working on software and technology that is automating the operations of the business. And so that consistent investment in R&D and innovation is just helps us with our productivity, but also means that we can offer a much better service to our members.
And so you mentioned kind of the innovation side. There's obviously a lot going on with, solar panels, and I'm sure some of us are familiar with smart meters. Kind of where do you stand when it comes to innovation? And is it harder now? Was it easier maybe 4 years ago? Or?
So is it
getting harder to innovate? Yeah.
It's definitely different. So I mean, back when you're a much smaller team, you can come up with an idea, and you're all in the same room, you work on it the same day, and you can see the results of it like later in the afternoon. And also the ideas that the things that you're creating back then are often, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit, right? So they're often like simpler ideas. Now that we're at a much larger scale, some of the stuff that we can do is much more complicated, but is also much more exciting. And I guess one of the things that we're really like trying to learn about now is how to have the best of both, how to have that like nimble, agile way of developing and testing products very quickly, versus taking advantage of the additional scale that we have now, where we can work on things that are more sophisticated.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier, Bulb is a B Corp.
Yes.
Just wanted to ask, does anyone here know what a B Corp is? Will you raise your hands?
Yes,
okay.
Excellent. but it's about 5% of the room.
5%,
right?
yeah. So, would you mind just telling us a bit more about what a B Corp is?
Yeah, I'm glad you are. So this is a really important thing about us and the company. So a B Corp is, there's an organization called B Lab, and it's an independent organization. They assess companies for their social and environmental responsibility. So as a company, everything that you do is sort of assessed for the impact on the community in which you're working, the planet, the relationship that you have with your customers, and the relationship you have with your team. And so for Bulb to be a B Corp means that we've met these rigorous social and environmental standards, which is really important in itself, and it's also a really important thing for the people that work at Bulb. So it helps us attract like the best people to join the team. The other important thing about B Corp is that the legal documents that enshrine like the company and my responsibility as a director of the company are different to a normal company. So in normal corporate documents, a director like me is responsible to the shareholders of the company, and that is the single group that I am responsible to and can be held accountable by. With a B Corp, it's different. In your legal documents, instead of saying shareholders, you say stakeholders.
Right.
And that's because we take all of our customers and employees and the community in which we work in the environment into consideration when we make choices about the business. Would you
say that builds trust as well, or how does that from a
I think it does. For us, we think it's really important to do this in itself, just because it's the right thing to do.
Yep.
But I think also a lot of consumers are now interested in the implications that their purchases and their consumption have. And so for us to be able to communicate that in a clear and succinct way with B Corp is a great thing.
And a little bit more about kind of the energy, and maybe as we focused on tech, kind of where do you see the industry going, and kind of what are your growth plans?
Yeah. So energy is, I mean, I'm a bit of a nerd, but I think that energy is going through an incredible transition right now. So 10 years ago, you had about 8% of electricity in the UK came from renewable sources. That's now up to 33%. And so the kind of greening up of our electricity generation has had the biggest single impact on the UK's overall carbon emissions in the last decade. That trend is only going to accelerate. So right now, the most cost-efficient way of building new electricity generation is to build a renewable power plant rather than one that relies on fossil fuels. The other thing that's really exciting is because that renewable technology, which is things like solar and wind, is much more distributed within the grid, it means that people's homes are going to have a completely different role within the energy network in the future.
What type of roles?
It's a very long elevator sort of journey, isn't it? But I think, so for example, there's over 1 million homes in the UK today that have solar panels. There's thousands and thousands of homes now that have electric vehicles and also have independent lithium-ion batteries in the home. And so homes are becoming a kind of two-way node within the energy network. So instead of just receiving electricity from the grid, there are times when homes are feeding it into the grid. And that's something that at Bulb we want to make easier for people to be a part of and simpler. So we're doing things like, we were the first energy supplier to measure the output that people's solar panels have. And when the government removed the feed-in tariff a few months ago, instead of, we were able to now replace the feed-in tariff with payments. So we just buy the energy from our members that have solar panels. Okay. And we're able to do that in a really simple way that our members can see their imports and their exports on their statements and in the emails and in the app that we provide to them.
We have a few minutes left, but I just want to ask a bit about your role as a CEO, being in the kind of tech industry and energy. What have you learned along the way? And is there anything that you wish you'd known 4 years ago? Because Bulb have had, you've been in the industry for 4 years, you're at 450 staff, so you've had really rapid growth. So is there anything that you know now that you wish you had known?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I've never done this before. I think there's a lot of importance placed on like the CEO and people kind of, which is kind of like a odd position to be in. I think so. I think one of the things that I've found really helpful is just to speak to lots of people, have lots of advisors. There's a lot of really generous founders in London who are kind of, they're very open in sharing their experiences. So I guess if I were, one of the things that I wish I'd found out sooner is just how generous and kind, more experienced and people are, and when you can learn a lot from the things that they've done and from their advice. Nice. I mean, there's 100 things that I could mention.
Do you have any advice for any tech CEOs or anyone starting out, or?
I guess the number one thing I would say is just to like really sweat the details and do it. Like just jump in and don't listen to do listen to them, but don't be overly influenced by people who are maybe a bit more pessimistic and a bit more skeptical of what you're doing. There were, literally thousands of people that told us that what we were doing was a bad idea, and hundreds of investors who we went and asked to get money off, and they said, we're not interested. This one isn't for us. And you can get ground down a bit by that, and just don't pay too much attention to them.
Okay.
Like let your own judgment guide you.
And one last question.
Which I realise is in complete contradiction to my previous answer. so sorry.
I just wanted to ask about quickly about your kind of culture. When you started, how have you maintained the culture at Bulb to now your 450 staff?
Yeah.
How have you done that?
God, well, culture's not. Culture is its own thing. So I'm just like one person in the culture. What we did right at the start, which I'm eternally grateful for, is one of our advisors, this chap called Russell Davis, said, you should write down what you think your culture is. And so as a team, this is when we were 15 people, we all got in a room and wrote down on Post-its what the things that we liked in each other were and what we thought it should be like to work at Bulb.
What were those things?
Things like action this day, so get things done. Starting with the point, be a sponge was one of them, because we place a lot of emphasis on learning and curiosity. Data wins is another important one. We really want to use data to make decisions instead of someone's anecdotal opinion. And so then what we've done, that was when we were about 20, 30 people. What we've done since then is actually kept that document exactly as it is. Now that we have 450 people, we've just gone through a similar exercise, but with 450 people in a room with Post-its, which was chaos. And we're sort of refreshing what that culture document's like, and a lot of it's the same, but there are a few things that you need to sort of include when you're a larger, more complex organization.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but thank you so much, Hayden, for being in this session.
No, of course.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.